This is where Maya Lin's journey began. Maya Lin's parents came to America from China in the 1940s. Henry Lin, Maya Lin's father, was a ceramicist, and her mother, Julia Lin, a poet, was a literature professor. Maya Lin has an older brother named Tan, who is a poet like his mother. Maya was born into an artistic family October 5, 1959, in Athens, Ohio. Lin would entertain herself reading. She loved hiking and birdwatch as a child. At an early age, she excelled in math, which led her toward a career in architecture. During high school, Lin took college-level courses. After graduating high school, Lin enrolled at Yale University in New Haven, Connecticut to study architecture. Her best-known work, the design for the Vietnam Veterans Memorial in Washington, D.C., grew out of a class project during her senior year. In 1981, her entry was chosen out of a field of 1,421 unlabeled submissions in a design competition that was open to all Americans, not just professional architects.
Some of Lin's famous artwork was the Civil Rights Memorial. She was commissioned to design the monument. Lin found her inspiration in the words, "Until justice rolls down like the waters and righteousness like a mighty stream," a paraphrase from the Book of Amos that Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. used in his "I Have a Dream" speech, and at the start of the Montgomery bus boycott. Lin's first artwork is the Vietnam Memorial Wall, a very known piece of art ever created in the United States. The wall proposed two 200-foot-long polished black granite walls, which dipped 10 feet below grade to meet at an obtuse angle of 130 degrees. The two arms were to point towards the Lincoln Memorial and the Washington Monument. On the wall, names of 58,000 men and women killed or missing in Vietnam were engraved. In 1979, Jan Scruggs conceived the idea of building the Vietnam Veterans Memorial in Washington, D.C., as a tribute to all who served during one of the longest wars in American history. Jan Scruggs, a Vietnam veteran, is a big part of the creation of the Vietnam Memorial Wall. He launched a personal crusade to raise funds for the memorial that would tribute to the soldiers who had lost their lives in the war.
The initial design for the Vietnam Veterans Memorial was the Maya Lin design. She had the most brilliant design because we said in the competition that we wanted this to be reflective and contemplative and horizontal, and she met all that. We got it built in record time. We started in 1979 and it was completed in 1982. How are you going to beat that?
Although this outstanding veteran did the most, veteran Tom Carhart pushed for a more traditional monument. He even submitted an entry into the contest featuring him carrying a fallen comrade. Some saw it as an anti-war statement, others just wondered why an Asian American should be the designer. Many veterans, politicians, critics, and the general public read its refusal to explicitly glorify the war or frame the listed soldiers' sacrifice in recognizably heroic terms as an ideological statement, proof of Lin's and the memorial's purported anti-war position.
There were many critics toward Lin's artwork. Like many veterans, Carhart read Lin's design through the lens of his own experience, and carrying an America that was at best indifferent and at worst outright hostile towards soldiers returning from Vietnam. Furthermore, he explicitly framed his interpretation of the memorial in opposition to the explicitly artistic perspective. Carhart equated artists and their defenders with individuals who engaged in acts of aggression against returned soldiers, and who were thus correlated with an entirety of the anti-war movement. Critics of Lin's design proposed that a second work be included in the memorial site, and a solution to the problem of the original memorial design: a figurative bronze statue by Frederick Hart of three soldiers in uniform.
It was never meant. It's for the veterans, but it's also, if anyone goes in there, I don't know. The key with it is I watched as a group of school kids went in there. They didn't have any connection to the war specifically. They were actually a rowdy bunch of kids, and they're kids. They're having a good time. And the minute they started walking into it, the teacher didn't have to say anything. They just quieted down. I think there's a universalness to it. Maybe it's the psychology of what it is and how it's working. Where you begin, it's not that it's almost like the names rise up and you become a part of it, and it doesn't overpower you. And I think there are key things about it. I mean, I really don't want to go into it. It's a book out of doors. The text is made so it's less than a half-inch thick. It was pretty much, I was told, you can't do that. Monument design is like, lettering has to be yay high. What happens when you put a book out of doors? You read it personally. Anything I do, it's very intimate, no matter how large these pieces are. So I think there's some universal sort of reactions to the piece that will still be the same sort of psychological reaction to it. And I think it was always meant so that it is a timeline of a specific war, but in essence, it is about maybe the universal loss of people in a war.
9 years later, another sculpture was added of 3 women caring for an injured soldier. Not only did the controversy quickly quiet down, but the Vietnam Veterans Memorial has since become both widely praised and wildly popular. When the Vietnam Veterans Memorial was first dedicated 3 decades ago, Lynn's wall contained the names of 57,939 American servicemen believed to have lost their lives in the Vietnam War, but since then that number has jumped to 58,282. The controversy surrounding the memorial instantly vanished from the pages of the press, replaced by celebrations of its interactivity, tranquility, and emotive power. Once there was no more room for conflict, the memorial's form upon dedication was no longer negotiable. The front in this cultural war moved elsewhere. The shift, however, did not represent a resolved conflict between public art and poet memory and memorialization, but merely a temporary relocation of the debate.